Uh, Hello everyone. So this lecture is all about those simulation experiments which are there in your communication lab. Okay. So as per your syllabus, you will be getting one question from the remaining set of experiments, and you are supposed to get one question from these simulation experiments. So what do we have, by the way, for your syllabus? Let us see. So first question is first experiment is a simulation of NRZ RZ half sinusoid and raised cosine pulse and generate eye diagram for binary polar signal. Okay. Hmm. So this is one. Uh, Next one is simulation of the pulse code modulation and demodulation and displaying the waveforms. Third one is simulation of QPSK transmitter and receiver, plot the signals and constellation diagram. Then test the performance of a binary DPSK. Okay, and okay, a system by simulating the non-coherent detection of binary DPSK. Okay, so since we do not have much time, and so what I will be doing is I will be giving you a very little introduction on each of these topics, and I will be giving you a reference abstract program. But I hope you will be able to make necessary changes as per the requirements during exam. Okay, so let us go through one by one. Let us start with the first one. Okay, so the topic is all about eye diagrams, but then the whole attention to the eye diagrams comes from this line coding. So what is this line coding, by the way? You want to, in the baseband, say in the baseband, that means without any modulation, if at all you want to send a data over a wire, okay, then how would you send it? Okay, so then we all know this is the most trivial form, that is 0 is 0 and 1 is given by a plus 5 volt or something. But then we know this is an unbalanced wave, right? Because it is having a lot of DC content, right? It's having a lot of DC content. So sometimes it makes sense that you go for non-return zero bipolar. Now this bipolar, it contains 0 is a minus 5 and 1 is a plus 5. On the whole, assuming that ones and zeros occur with equal probability, the DC content in this is actually 0. So you might have heard this during your sixth semester DC, that it's good to have a code or a spectrum which contains less DC. Okay, which contains less DC. So then what is meant by non-return zero here in line codes? As you can see here in this particular code, somewhere in the entire bit duration. So this particular thing is the bit duration, right? This entire thing is the bit duration. See, this is the bit duration. In these first two codes, in this first two codes here, you can see throughout the duration it is staying either 0 or minus 5 or plus 5. In the return 0 mode, you can see it is staying in whatever plus 1, then coming back to 0. Even in bipolar, you can see going to plus 1 half the time, then afterwards coming back, going to minus 1 minus 5, then afterwards coming back. So they are called as return 0. So there is non-return 0, then there is return 0, then other than that there is bipolar, and then there is unipolar. Bipolar schemes are those which have this minus 5 and plus 5 sort of things. Unipolar contains 0 and the positive voltage. Actually this contains a lot of DC, and this one are basically AC waveforms, you can say. Then there are some specific codes. Okay, then there are some specific code which are designed, which will help you understand the differentiate between a no code and the presence of a code, right? You are not sending anything, then you are sending zeros. Now not sending anything is a zero, right? Then you send a zero which is also a zero. So whether it's a signal or a no signal, you want to know, right? So in such cases, then these kind of special codes come into picture. There is something like Manchester, what is this non-return zero then an eye. What is that thing? And then as per the clock. So I give this to you, okay, as to what these two special codes mean. Okay, what these two special code mean. So did you sort out by the way what is actually happening here? You got a 0, then you can see for 1 you had this particular thing, then afterwards for when there was another 0 nothing happened, but then when next one came the status now changed, then for the next one again status has again changed, and for the 0 no change. Okay, so I think, and then there is Manchester. Okay, so something called a split face Manchester or something. You can say 0 is something like this, and 1 is also, both of them are bipolar. 0 represented in manner, but what about this one? In this particular case you can see 0 was represented by no signal, 1 was represented by something bipolar. Okay, I hope you got this particular thing. So for more of this I expect you to refer to DC. I hope you want to have studied this already. Now, what has the eye diagram got to do with it? Now, the when you decide to go for certain choice of a code, so now how do you choose a particular code? So, choosing a particular code determines whether you are okay with the DC content or you need some AC. Can you differentiate, is it consuming a lot of power, or you can manage with as little power as possible? You can see here, right, this particular code on all the time, this one on only for half a duration or a fraction of the entire bit interval. And sometimes it may be, are you able to differentiate between no code and the presence of a code, which happened here in case of Manchester, or even in written that bipolar. And sometimes in case things go wrong, in case there is a error, is the code ready to handle 1 or 2 bits of error which are not so continuous, and are the codes capable of allowing you to do the synchronization? So based on all these choices, you decide which code to go for. And then there is one thing, you cannot go for these kind of boxes, because when you go for the codes and you want to occupy the entire time interval in like this boxes, we know in the frequency domain what's going to happen when we know that DFT of a rectangular pulse is going to be a, a sync pulse, right? DFT of a rectangular pulse is a sync, and DFT of a sync is a rectangular. What we want to do is a proper bandwidth allocation, and when you go for this kind of square sort of things, you will realize that the frequency domain is going to be a sync pulse with a lot of overlappings, with a lot of overlapping. That's not cool, and that is not even efficient utilization. So other than this line code, sometimes they suggest you to go for a code which looks something like this, a sync in the time domain. Instead of sending the square boxes, we will send go for a sync waves. Okay, which what they do is they give you a rectangular box in the frequency domain. So when there is rectangular box in the frequency domain, then it will be very proper utilization in the frequency domain. Efficient frequency bandwidth utilization is going to happen. So that's why an ideal pulse is not this kind of square boxes. Yes, they look fine in the time domain, but then when there are lots and lots of codes, and when you try to modulate, then send it over bandwidth, then you want to demodulate, you do not want any issues, then maybe sending this rectangular boxes is not a good idea. You will go for these kind of courses where there is a sync and there is something called as a raised cosine pulse. Okay. So assuming that you happen to know a little bit of that, now let me continue. Now what is an eye diagram by the way? So eye diagram is this thing. Wait a second. Yes. Now eye diagram is this particular thing which will let you know, depending on the kind of choices you have made based on the codes. If at all, see, how do you get an eye diagram? By the way, eye diagram is got by usually. Let us see. Do we have a formal definition here? Uh, Wait a second. Yeah, no, sorry. An eye diagram actually is you take a this kind of a pulse that has been modulated. Say here I have shown in this particular figure. In this particular figure, say there is this a data. Say there is the data. See 0 1 0 1 1 0 1 0 1. Say I decide to go for a sync pulse. Okay, say I decide to go for a sync pulse maybe. So what would I do is say a non-return zero sync pulse. Zero will be represented with the sync. One will be represented with positive sync. Zero will be represented negative. One will be represented positive. By the time return zero, okay. So something like this, then one. Now, what if I cut them? What if I cut them into pieces of each of 1 bit duration? What if I cut this into pieces of 1 bit duration? And then I place them all one above the other. Then I place these pieces one above the other. What's going to happen, by the way? So when I do that, then I will get a box, one box, which is having width of the duration. So there was my first one, then there are zero, there was one, then there are some zeros, then there is my second one, then there is my zero, then there is a one, then there is a zero. Okay, this is cool. And now tell me, if at all I have to recover my data, where should I recover? Right? If at all I want to recover, yeah, you have sent a one or you have sent a zero. Now at the receiver side, I want to recover it. So where should I do it? In this particular, it's easy, right? You do it anywhere in the bit duration. You can do it. Sampling instant can be here, 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 here. Okay, anywhere in the bit, right? It's called a sampling duration. At that particular instant, if at all a sample, I will exactly know whether I have sent a one or I have sent a zero. Okay, but when in the case of eye diagram, in case of a raised cosine, you realize with this particular eye diagram, you want to go for an area where the width of the eye is maximum, right? So your choice here would be, if at all I want to sample this particular thing, probably center of this particular eye would be an ideal choice. Okay, got this particular thing. Now if at all I go for an ideal eye diagram for this rz bipolar, you know what I'm going to get? I will be getting a box something like this maybe. Okay, so if at all I have a bit duration of say 1 second, if at all I have a bit duration of say 1 second, then ideal sampling interval would be zero point 0.5 seconds, right? So is this a too thick a marker? Okay, okay. So ideal sampling thing would be at the center, right? That would be 0.5. Okay, that would be 0.5. Whereas if at all I see a eye diagram of a returns at bipolar, it's going to be the entire thing. Eye width is going to be 1 second, but then I have my values here in this particular location only. I have the values here in this particular box only. Remaining box here, this particular part, I cannot sample. Okay, there is nothing useful in this particular section. And what will be the ideal sampling time, by the way? So it will be something like 0.25 seconds. If at all I have to sample the data, which will give me exact judgment, it will be probably at 0.25 seconds. Okay, not in the middle of the bit duration, but in the first quarter. Okay, got this particular thing. So that's what. Now things go really wrong. Things go really bad whenever there is noise in the channel. So whenever there is noise in the channel, your eye will not be this much good looking. Actually, it goes very weird. Okay, so let us see. So here is a general behavior of a typical eye diagram. So what is it, by the way? So you cut them in pieces. You cut them in pieces like this. You cut them in pieces. Then you plot them one above the other. Then you plot them one above the other. You to end up getting something like this. And then this eye gives you a judgment as to where exactly you would like to sample your data. So the terms involved are, and moreover, in the presence of noise, this becomes much more interesting. So there is a distortion of zero crossing that's going to happen. That will be indicated margin over noise. Now whenever there is a noise in the system, that's when you realize, okay, you have done all your codes and everything, you want to save on power, you do not want any dc content, but if at all there is a lot of noise in the channel, now let me tell you frankly, this code is not going to work. Neither this code is going to work. Okay, if at all there is additive white noise, this code probably work, because this is having a very large duration, and eye diagram is going to be, eye width of the opening of the eye is going to be very very wide maybe. So it depends on the situation. Okay, on what sort of noise you are encountering, and how sluggish is the particular. And you see, You might have sent a wave which is something like this, but then the moment you give an input like the sudden change, it is always resisted. You end up getting something sluggish, right? The moment you give the input which is something like this, output doesn't, right? Output takes a lot of time, right? Zero crossing, then again your input has come here, then after input suddenly decays. Then this one, no, it takes a lot of time to even decay. Okay, depends on your channel's impulse response, depends on your channel impulse response, depends on the time delay spread, right? There are so many issues that are going to occur. So an eye diagram is a very nice thing which will let you know exactly. So what are things? Yeah, the time interval which the wave is best sample. So you have to make a judgment. For a raised cosine wave it is different, for an nrz it is different, for a return zero bipolar it is different, for unipolar it is different. Slope sensitivity to the timing error. Okay, sensitivity to timing error, yeah, there are so many terms here which will be very interesting questions for viva. Prepare well for them. So a reference for this, I think it's chapter number 6 in your DC. Okay. So previous semester book. Okay, kindly go through it. And by the way, yeah, what sort of waves are we going for? So you might remember, if at all you have studied the raised cosine pulse, you might have remember there is this particular term called as beta. When this beta equal to 0, it emulates a rectangular pulse, which is very very unreal. And then for different values of beta, you get this kind of the width of the pulse gets wider. Okay, the width of the pulse gets wider, but then it's a rectangular thing in the frequency domain. Okay, that is about a little bit introduction onto the theory. Okay, now let us see what does Matlab program, and what do we try to do there in the Matlab program for this particular thing. Okay, now let me take you to the Matlab interface. So here is my Matlab program. Okay, so can you see the screen? Now let me just here. Okay, wait a second. Let me just increase the font size a bit. Let me just increase the font size a bit. Something like some bigger number. Okay, okay. Now we are good. Hmm? So see, it's a very generic program that has been written. So clear all is the. Wait a second. Am I sharing the thing? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay. So yeah. So first is clear all. Yeah, I defined role of factor as one. What is this role of factor? So as I was telling you, there was this particular thing. You have this particular uh, your raised cosine pulse, and you should be given a role of factor which is nothing but your beta. Okay, so beta equal to 1, beta equal to zero point 0.5, beta equal to 0. There are, based on that it's going to differ. Okay, based on that it's going to differ. Then there is something called as a span. Okay, something called as a span. What is the logic behind the program? Let us try to understand what is the logic behind the program. See here, yeah, this role of factor is nothing but your beta for your raised cosine pulse. Span is 6. That is the length of the impulse response. That means if at all I give simply an impulse like this, it's going to result in a pulse which is 6 sample wide. Okay. Suppose I give a pulse like this, say 1 1, then a 0, then a 1, then it's going to give 5 pulse of 1, then okay, 6 pulse of 1, 6 pulses of 0, 6 pulses of 0, then again 6 pulses of 1. Okay, that's how it is, right? Because we are in a digital thing and we are trying to simulate something which is analog in nature. Okay, so you end up getting some decent looking wave here. Okay, looking like boxes. Okay, so samples per what is this SPS, filter span and symbols. Okay, okay. So that was that. So rcosdesign is the raised cost ready template that we are using. So what does it do? What does it do? Let us go and quickly check. So I will here wait. Let me cancel this annotations. Okay. So hell, uh, I will do this r cos design. R cos design is a ready function. Thank God it is there. So I told you this role of factor is nothing but the beta. Okay. Then there is something called a span, as I told you, filter span in a number of symbols. Okay, okay. Now see the help has come up. The help has come up. Okay. Yeah, here. Returns a square root raised cosine FIL filter coefficients B with role of factor beta. The filter is truncated to span number of symbols. Fine. Each symbol is represented by SPS number of samples. Okay, each symbol is represented these many number of samples. So 10 was the number of samples, okay, which has been chosen here by me for this particular program. Okay, so here truncate the filter to 6 symbols. So when you overlap so many symbols, it's going to be very irritating, right? So it's telling truncate the entire thing to 6 samples, symbolically represent each symbol with 4 samples. So here the overall 6 samples, each sample, that means if at all I give a 1, you will be representing, you will be generating, okay, wait a second, let me convince you here. So what it means is, now suppose if at all I give a 1 impulse, something like this, say I send a 1, then I send a -1, this 1 will be replaced by a raised cosine pulse. This pulse is going to contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 samples. Okay. Then there is a -1. So this once again -1 is 1, 2, 3, 4. What this particular thing? This is an impulse, and this particular thing here is the impulse response. If at all instead of this, if at all I give a simple instead of all ones with this particular shape, if at all I give a normal box car like 1 1 1 1 1, this will be, this is going to be non-return zero unipolar. Okay, got this particular thing. So that's the logic. Okay, you can write the program whichever the way you want. So for raised cosine, this is what has been used by me. Okay, then we will also use, you can also simulate binary non-return zero. So for binary non-return zero means what I have done, simply I have taken ones. How many ones? 10 number of ones. For return zero, what I am doing is, for binary return zero, what is meant by return zero? Return zero means the symbol will be on for half the duration, off for remaining duration. Okay, on for half the duration, off for remaining duration. Okay, in the single duration. So out of 10, 5 will be on and 5 will be off. Then for simulation, I've taken some 500 bits. Okay, and to make things interesting or worse, I don't know what it is. AWGN has been added here. Okay, AWGN has been added. So what is this? Random noise. Random noise. Okay, 2 into random. It has been taken. Let me show you that also. Okay. And then afterwards upsample FIR filter. So what does this function do? So now we wanted to show this entire particular thing. Here is one more function, up FIR down. Okay, okay, what is this up FIR down? Let us try to understand here once again. So help up IR down. So what does this particular thing do? What does this particular thing do? Let us see. Let us see. Here. Okay. Apply a specified FIR filter. Upsample. That means if at all I give a 1, it will be upsampled by 10 samples. 1 is upsampled to 10. Then afterwards, apply the FIR filter. Apply the FIR filter. Which FIR filter you will apply? This simpletons. For raised cosine function, we use this FIR filter here. Binary another. This FIR filter, which is also 1. And for binary another, for raised cosine filter, we will use this FIR filter. Then afterwards, once again, the signal will be downsampled. Okay, then afterwards once again the signal will be downsampled. Okay, so that's that. So finally here there is this ready function for eye diagram, which I told you will be simply cutting the thing into pieces as wide as the bit duration. So what is the bit duration, by the way? In our example, bit duration is just samples per symbol. 10, that will be our bit duration. Okay, that will be our bit duration as given here. Okay, so entire thing will be cut into this much wide pieces and put one above the other. So let us run this particular thing. So if at all you want to run this particular program, what changes you need to make? So here is the thing. Okay, So here you have to write depending on what has been asked to you, either bn or binary non-written 0, binary written 0, polar or bipolar. If at all it is bipolar, one sign maybe here you have to do -1, okay, +1 and -1. Otherwise raised cosine pulse has been asked, and find out what's the beta that has been asked, usually 1.5. Okay, they are the standard values. Now let me run this particular thing. Run this particular thing. So for the timing it is binary non-written 0. So there. Okay, so there you got the output. Now let me share with you the figures that have popped up. Okay, so here you can see in the first figure which I'm sharing with you, you can see what is happening. You simply send this sequence 1 0. So I changed it in between the number to total 25 symbols. Okay, so you send a 1, then it's going to happen 10 ones will be coming. Then you send a -1, then 10 -1s, then you send a +1, then 10 plus 1s, 10 plus 1s, 10 plus 1s, then 10 -1s, 10 plus 1s, 10 -1. This is what is happening. Okay, so what is the remaining thing now? Yeah, now what about the eye diagram? Now let me take you to the eye diagram here which has popped up. Hmm? As you can see, this here is the eye diagram, and where do you intend to scan? Where do you intend to scan here? So if at all you want to scan this particular thing, definitely not in the middle. Okay, definitely not in the middle. So probably this particular area here in the first half, that will be your preferred area. Okay, so now what we will do, we will once again go to the program. We will once again go to the program and go to raised cosine thing. Okay, so one small change I would like to make here. Now I will go to this particular thing, and here I will change this bnrz to simply b, which is the raised cosine function. And let me run this program once again. Now let us run the program once again here. Okay, now the moment the eye diagram has come up. Okay, see, so here the eye diagram has come. So this particular instant is the right sampling interval, and then I had added some noise was added. Okay, some noise was added. There is one more diagram which shows you exactly how the thing has been encoded. You can see here, just as in the textbooks, right? Just as in the textbooks, the thing, every one has been replaced by these kind of sync pulses. Okay, every values have been replaced by sync pulses. See, this is a sync here, this is also sync, this is a sync, this is a sync, this is a sync. Okay, and so on. They have added somewhere constructively. Okay, constructively, destructively, but then it is fine. Okay, so this is fine. Okay, so then what all changes do you need to make here? By the way, maybe you can change beta. Okay, maybe you can change the beta value and check what's going to happen. Okay, now let me two things let me do here. One thing, I will maybe add the noise. Maybe I will remove the noise. Let us see how the program has been done. D AWGN 2 into and I. Okay, okay. Now let me simply enhance the content of noise here. I have made some change here. Okay, made some change here. Enhance the noise amplitude. Enhance the noise amplitude. Just to stress on why it is important for us to have an eye diagram. Okay. So now let me show you. Okay. So it's getting even better. Okay. The eye diagram has got much better. It is still robust. Okay. Because this particular noise is not able to make much of the difference here. Okay, so that was about the first program, that is AWGN 5 times noise 20. Okay, so that was the first program about the eye diagram. Okay, so I will do one more. I will share also with you this program. I will share with you, and I will make one more short video on the next experiment. Okay, So till then, any other things here, by the way? Yes, you can also change this particular thing in the program. You can always change this a role of factor. So just find out, what are the standard role of factors. Okay, what are their expected values? What are their expected values? All those things you also just find out. Okay. Because and once again, why nothing happened when we added this particular noise is because since I had taken a very small number, a length of 25. Okay, now let me just make it 250 or something. Let me make it 250, and this particular number is too small to be to make any impact. Okay, and moreover it was on a positive side. So let me just make some small change here. And now let me just run this once again and see. Okay, I wanted it to get worse and tell you on okay, so now I have got this new eye diagram here. This is much better. You can see in this particular eye diagram, even in the presence of lot of noise, so you can see having a lot of noise, what has happened is the opening of the eye has gone smaller, and also the sluggishness. Okay, just as in the textbook figure, right? It has changed. And then there was this beta. Okay, so this also, right, had you gone for a lesser beta, your width also would have gone reduced. Larger beta, yes, actually very sluggish in the time domain, but in the frequency it is very efficient. Okay. So these are things which you are supposed to see. And one more is how things are going to perform if at all we go for conventional bipolar non-return zero or return zero. Let us try that instead of mm, what do I say? I will okay. So here what I will do, instead of this B, the rcosdesign, let me go for binary return zero or binary non-return zero. Okay, bnrz. I will type. Rest all of the things remain still same. Okay, so AWGN of length, yeah, this AWGN of file filter. Okay, okay. So here I have made a small change here. So one thing is from raised cosine pulse, I have converted this to binary NRZ, and now just me version the whole noise thing. Okay, let me just version the whole noise thing. I will make this reduce the SNR here. So poor SNR means poor noise. Okay, a higher SNR means less noise. So let me reduce this SNR to something like 10. Okay, and then now let me run this particular thing. Wait a second. So taking time for execution. Okay, so there is the eye diagram. Okay, so what has just happened here? Okay, so once again, this is the extended one. Wait a second, let me. Okay, let me go to the program here and let us try to understand what has happened. Okay, eye diagram is here. Okay, so can you say this? Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So now let me just stop here. The video is going to end. Okay. So I will be sending one more video on the next experiment. Okay. One more video on next experiment. Do come to the lab and rehearse this particular thing in case you get any doubts. Okay. So till then, bye.